Everything starts with a story. The experience of any exhibit actually starts when you first get out of the car, off the bus, walk up to the building. As soon as you enter the space, the first thing you do as a visitor is you kind of take it all in. What do you see? What's out there? What are they reading? What are they touching? What are they feeling? What are they hearing? We can even do smells. What are they smelling?
Taylor Studios started in 1991. In the 30 years that I ran the company, we did over 700 projects in 45 states and 4 countries. I lived across the street from Joe Taylor, and he was an artist, and he got a job with Gary Breeze, who was a taxidermist at the time. And Gary got a job to make some trees for a nature center, and they had to just sort of figure it out. And then Joe and I realized this was an industry. People built exhibits for a living. You can't beat that. Like, that is so cool. So it was just Joe and I in the beginning doing the artifact and fossil reproductions, like selling our wares out of the back of the pickup truck, going to events and trade shows. So that was the sort of humble start, but knowing that we wanted to fabricate exhibits for museums. But that kind of got our name out there, and we sold those all over the world. We were in a very old farmhouse in Mahomet. There was a chicken coop on the property that we renovated. And then to the west, there was an old, really beautiful barn, a 2-story wood barn with a big, hayloft. So in 2007, I bought the old Walmart building, which is where we're sitting in today, so that we could do all production under one roof. Exhibits are stories in 3D. In a museum, only about 2% of their collection is on display. So it's really difficult for our clients to decide what story to tell because there are so many. And so you have to pick and choose what you think will engage your audience or what you think the important story of the time is. A good exhibit is an exhibit that can transform you to another time and place.
A project usually starts with a museum or a nature center having an idea. I want a mammoth. All right, that's a good starting point. There's still some interpretation and story to tell there. How is that mammoth interacting with things around it? How do you want to see that mammoth? Is it just looking straight? Is it head up and rear to the left? Is it up on up on 3 legs and one leg's up in the air? Or is it just standing there? Is it grazing in the grass? All those tell a story. The overall process for Taylor Studios' amount of work for one gallery is usually about 18 months. 12 months of design and about 6 months of fabrication and install. The process starts with resource analysis, which is gathering all the resources that the client has. Then we go to schematic design. Schematic design is more of a floor plan layout of the space and kind of divvying up budget. Then after that, then we get into what we call conceptual design. Conceptual design is when we start making the pretty pictures. We start doing some sketches, we put some color to them, we have renderings, and it really starts coming together, give you that visual of the space. Then we go into detail design. Detail design is when you start putting dimensions to those really pretty pictures. You start calling out what materials will be used. And then we start fabricating. We fabricate everything at Taylor Studios in a repurposed Walmart, and we put it together there for the first time. Then we disassemble, we put it into trucks, and we ship it all over the country. Shipping items is an adventure. We always have to think about how does a piece get made in a Walmart in Illinois and get to and inside an exhibit. So a lot of our pieces do come apart, and then they are then reassembled on site and seamed on site. In our life cast figure fabrication method, we used to have to stick straws up someone's nose, have them hold very still, and cover them in alginate. Very claustrophobic, very scary. We've now can 3D scan someone's face and their head, and we print that on a resin printer to give us quite a bit of detail on that face. Then we can paint that head and paint it to look extremely real, let's say. Now, we still use the alginate molding and casting method on hands so that we can get the very fine detail, the pores in your fingers, the little fine cracks in your knuckles. Usually the bodies are carved out of foam, and then after that the foam is hard-coated, and then we actually have to make limbs removable in many cases to help put on the clothing. The fabrication of exhibits is definitely moving to a more digital age. We have a CNC router to cut wood and plastic. We have a CNC plasma that will cut metal. We have PLA and SLA printers that we can actually 3D print objects. We have a robot arm that can cut foam, but we see them more as a tool. You still have to have that artist's eye, and I think the human element of it and the artistic element will always be there, and that's what really will give you a dynamic exhibit.
A lot of our client base is natural history or a lot of nature centers.
But art museums are then a completely different ballgame, right? But I think the problem is with art museums is they're not drawing new audiences. You know, so it's almost like hoity-toity and you feel like I'm not rich enough to be in here or something. So are you gonna draw people from all the neighborhoods into this museum when they feel uncomfortable because you've designed this space to feel like you don't belong here?
We can't do that in this industry. We are in competition for people's leisure time, so it has to be an exhibit that will draw people in and they want to be there because they could just put a virtual reality set on and stay at home. But I think, you know, once again, it's about a sense of place or the authenticity of a real object. I think that is so much more impactful, emotional, authentic than any virtual reality experience could be. So I sold Taylor Studios in December of 2021. I think a little bit, after 30 some years, I hate to admit this, but I was a bit wore out. You know, so all my sleepless nights were about the people. You know, I mean, there's always cash flow crunches and are we gonna make sales and is this client happy? But it's about your people. And so I knew that was important to take care of the staff and to take care of the legacy we've built here as Taylor Studios. You know, as the older you get, the more risk averse you become. And I knew we needed to go in a different direction and build the digital fabrication studio, but you have to invest. Reggie is doing that, and so that's really exciting for Taylor Studios right now. So it's time for me to just manage sheep and horses.